Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Sincere with whoissincere.com and Anon Radio Live. This is the All Rights Matter show. We're going to be joined today by a special guest, Brandon Curtis. So if you've been waiting for this show, this is something that, is a big treat for us here at Anon Radio Live. Brandon Curtis is a part of the Three Percenters of Idaho, and he's out there in Oregon helping out with the situation surrounding the Bundys and the militia that's there in Oregon, and we want to go ahead and give him a warm welcome. Are you there, Brandon?
I'm here, thank you.
Okay, great. How you doing today?
Doing good. It's been a long couple weeks. Starting to get tired, but we're good.
Okay, yes, definitely. I understand that. Man, let me tell you something. We've been following you guys, and I can tell you one thing. You guys, the whole nation, I think you know this already. The whole nation is kind of divided. Some of the people are kind of like, well, these guys, they don't deserve to be there. And then there's other people in the nation that are saying, hey, you know what? This is the right thing to do. This is the thing that people are looking at the most. Where do you stand on that?
Well, we kind of have a different role in that. What we did is we took a position. Ammon Bundy and his guys, are occupying the refuge area up there. And so what we decided to do, even though we don't agree with necessarily how he executed that plan, he still needs to be, there's still brothers up there. So we got to watch out for those guys. So we took a exterior security neutral buffer, if you will, to provide security for the community, Ammon Bundy and the guys up there at the refuge, just to make sure there was no Waco type standoff. So we wanted to put that buffer in place, and so far we've been successful in doing that.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, we were watching a video, actually me and my show's producer, of you guys actually being, I believe a group of you guys got together and left the refuge and went to the actual compound, if I'm not mistaken, to, not the compound, but to the FBI compound to talk to them, to let them know your position in being there.
Yeah, so that's been the talk of the week. It's,
definitely.
Yeah, it's never been done before. I figured we're making history. We're going to make some changes, so we need to do it all the way around. So what I decided to do as a leader, is to take the convoy. We had the convoy, about 20 vehicles, probably about 70 people on the ground in our convoy. And after we met with Ammon Bundy at the refuge, we discussed with him the articles of resolution, and we needed to take those same discussions down to the FBI. So we drove right on down to where their secret, supposed secret staging area was, and walked up and discussed it with them. We needed to start opening a dialogue with those guys and let them know, first and foremost, we want to see peaceful resolution. And then secondly, that we aren't going anywhere. We're there as a buffer, and we are going to be the eyes, and we're going to make sure we don't have a standoff or any type of Waco type situation. And they weren't quite sure what to think of that at first.
Okay. So that's actually very interesting. Now, do you think, I want to get to something else, but I want to key in on that real quick. Do you think they weren't sure about it at first? Because of the Hammond stance, as far as them going off to jail, and do you think they were kind of apprehensive as far as any quote unquote outsiders were concerned, or do you think that played any kind of consideration into it?
Well, the FBI tactical teams, and as we've seen in history, they tend to be somewhat aggressive. We look at the federal BLM law enforcement, U.S. Forest Service law enforcement. They have very aggressive bully type tactics. So we just thought we'd take it there, and we went there and we approached them, and they were very, very. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. They took it very. They postured up on us pretty good.
And you can see man. I watched the video. You can see those guys. They came out combat ready. I'm a military veteran myself. So,
well, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. But I look at these guys and the way they came out of that building, it's almost like they were sitting in the conference room just ready. Obviously, they weren't, because when you guys pulled up, they were looking really concerned. And then a few minutes later, all the tactical gear came out.
Well, we certainly caught them off guard. One gentleman came out in his long johns. One guy had his shoes untied. A couple of the guys had different color gloves on. It was definitely, you could tell it was a scramble for them to get out the door. And the ironic thing about it is they had millions of dollars in surveillance equipment sitting there in that airport, and yet the only way they knew we were there is by looking out the window. It was almost ironic.
We have to laugh over here at Anon Radio. I mean, that to us is, I would say that it's classic, but it's the first time it's ever done so. But that's a classic example of how the people are supposed to take the power back, how the people are supposed to take the first step. I think when I watched that video, one of the things that I took from it personally is the fact that you guys went there. You went there peacefully. Nobody was brandishing a weapon when you actually walked up to the gates. I did notice that. Or if you had any weapons on you, they weren't in open visibility. So you weren't showing, any force, but you were showing solidarity, and you showed up at one time, and that in balance, what they're not used to, that actually balance is something that they're not used to. And when they saw it, I think they weren't expecting to see that many people at one time. Yeah,
they were not expecting that. They weren't even sure what to do. And we did not have any open long rifles or firearms. It was definitely, we didn't want to show any active aggression, because that was not our purpose for being there. Our purpose for being there was to make a statement.
That's right.
And have a discussion, but it was not to show an act of aggression. And when we first approached the gentleman at the gate, the entryway, if you will, we asked to talk to the special agent in charge because we need to pass that document off. And the one gentleman, FBI agent, actually literally said to us, using vulgarity language and all, so why don't you guys get back in your cars and get the F out of here? And I was like, wow, all right, so this is how we're going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally how we were met. And I looked at him and I said, well, it's not going to work that way anymore. We're here. We're not leaving. We don't have to leave. We have a right to stand right here on this public property. You're on a public airport that you got locked down. We're not going anywhere until you guys answer some questions. And he did not know what to do about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely commend you guys for taking a stand like that. See, I believe that's the difference in citizens understanding what their rights are and just being compliant, with the rule of government and of authority. So let's lead that into my next question, actually, which is about rights. Now, you guys it looked like you guys delivered some paperwork or something like that. Are you guys in discussion directly with the FBI to get in contact with someone about the rights of the land? Or how is this all planning to come about? How do you see this shaping out, in the next few days coming up, or in the next few weeks? We have we have no idea how long the federal government's going to take. So how do you see that shaping up?
Well, the purpose of our visit was to deliver the articles of resolution.
Okay.
And we know that the FBI is not going to be able to make those decisions and do those things. But there was a couple items in the articles of resolution that they needed to address. But first, what our thought process was, the delivering of that document to the FBI, and then after the FBI, we went to the sheriff's department and did the same thing, that it started a dialogue. It gave them talking points for all three parties to come together and try to figure this out and come up with a resolution peacefully. So it may not be the win-all, end-all in that document, but at least it was a starting point for talking points. When we gave that document to the FBI, they assured us that they would call me. I gave them my card. They were going to call me and just let me know that they got that to their chain of command and, at least keep me posted. And I have not heard a word from them since. We're going on, Saturday will be a week. So, and that's typical. I didn't expect to hear back from those guys.
Yeah, I listened to those guys, and I listened to the one guy who was standing in the middle there. He did a good deal of the talking towards the end, and he was very set on getting those documents so that he can give it to his chain of command. By the way, he made it sound someone would have been contacting you within 24 to 48 hours.
Absolutely, that's exactly what he had indicated, and it did not happen. And we weren't asking for an answer to that. I just wanted confirmation from him that it was at least handed off to the appropriate chain of command. That's it. Just a confirmation, and I couldn't even get that.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, though. I mean, that, when you have a group of Americans that are reaching out, and their primary reason for reaching out is saying, we're not being listened to, we're not being heard, we're not being understood, we're not being respected. And then of course, the situation results in this, and now there's, folks there at the refuge that are now standing up for their rights and saying, well, we're not going to accept this any longer. Then you go there to the actual FBI, to the, we might as well say the federal government, though they can't make the decisions. They're still, a branch or a part of the federal government. They can pass it off to the chain of command. So you go there in solidarity with everyone, and then they still show the same level of disrespect while lying to you on video directly to your face. Does that make you feel nervous in any kind of way? Does that make you feel like maybe their communications aren't going well between the parties that are supposed to be talking these things out?
No, that's exactly what I expected from them, to be honest. I expected lip service. They just want to get us out of there. To think anything more is ignorant, in my opinion. It is what it is. You got to take it at face value. When I walked away from there, I knew I wasn't going to hear from those guys, to be quite honest. So exactly what I expected is playing out.
Okay. Now, I have a question for you. You guys, you're not the only ones out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Online in the media, they have so many different names for the group of people that are occupying the refuge. The Bundy Militia, the Oregon Militia. What do they call themselves? Or if you guys are talking amongst yourselves, what is that group of people called?
Well, they name themselves at the refuge Citizens for Constitutional Freedom.
Okay.
That's what they named themselves. They weren't any particular organization or group when they went up there. It was just a splinter off from our rally that we actually put on, a couple weeks ago in Burns. And so what's happened now, as far as putting on the operation we're running for the security side, my organization, the 3% of Idaho, which I'm the president of, and then under that umbrella, we have what's called the Pacific Patriots Network. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
Yes, yes.
So I'm actually a founder in that with four other organizations, and so we all came together after the Operation Gold Rush at Sugar Pine Mine in Southern Oregon last year. Okay. And we formed the Pacific Patriot Network, which is 5 states. Wow. And it allows us to pull more resources and manpower that way.
Okay, so like five Western-based states, kind of like how the federal government has their own, system. I was seeing that who was that earlier that had tweeted something out or had said something? Fior, I believe, one of the representatives there.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And she's a part of the Coalition of Western States, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, COWS, correct.
Okay, so and you guys, as independent, patriots and just sticking up for the Constitution. So you guys have used your organizational efforts across the platform. Maybe the different networks have a little bit of different values or goals, but they all have the same goal as far as sticking up for the Constitution. So you've combined all of those groups together, and are all of those groups there with you?
Yeah, we have several members of those organizations that are under the Pacific Patriot banner. Okay. And one of the nice things too, with the Idaho 3%, I'll just use that as an example. Okay. We have over 2,100 members in our organization in just the state of Idaho. Wow. And so the movement's growing very fast. And one of the things that I have to point out that it's important to do to gain credibility in these situations is to do it professionally and with transparency, like we've been doing. And that brings a lot of validity to the things that we're involved in. So with the situation in Burns, Oregon, it's able to get a lot of attention if we're involved in that with the Pacific Patriot Network, because they know that it's something that's legitimate. We vet everything. We go off facts. We just don't go running in the wind looking for revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the common misconception that a lot of people have is, no thanks to the media, of course, but the common misconception that the people have across America is, who are these guys and what gives them the right to do this? And, just these questions that come out of, we'll just have to say ignorance. They just aren't knowledgeable about the situation let alone their own personal daily rights that they have as American citizens. So I want to talk to you a little bit about um, not exactly, I guess you could say, if you can, just tell us a little bit about why you're sticking up for the story of, the Hammonds. If it's really the Hammonds that you're there for, or if it's maybe just in general, like just the whole situation with the BLM overstepping their boundaries in many different cases now. And this is just one isolated case right here. But are you there representing kind of the Hammonds, the Bundys, or just the rights in general?
Well, actually, all of it. We got involved with the Hammond case and situation back in October, long before this was really on everyone's national radar.
Okay.
When we got wind, because Burns, Oregon is only about 2 hours from us, so it really truly is our neighbor.
Okay.
And we heard about what was going on with the Hammonds and the abuses that they've been dealing with from the BLM and the federal government for the past 30 years.
Yeah.
And we personally met, myself and other representation from the Pacific Patriot Network. I mean, we personally sat down and met with the Hammonds. We met with the sheriff back then to try to get this resolved and offered help. The Hammonds had just been so abused, and
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why they didn't want help. And we offered legal help at no cost that we had financial backing for, and it really related back to when you have someone that's abused, like physically abused, and they're laying on the ground hurting, and you go to give them that hand, they don't know you go to give them that hand. The first thing they do is cringe. They're just hurt. They're just beat down.
Or somebody that that you're trying to save from drowning. The first thing they do is pull you under.
Exactly right. And so it's just they're just fear, and I felt so bad. And I tell you what, when we did the rally, and I gave them a hug on their front porch, knowing they were going to prison in 2 days. It's probably one of the hardest things I had to do. I got very emotional, but looking in their eyes, that solidified why we do what we do, and that I made a renewed vow, if you will, like I won't stop. We're going to keep doing what we do, and I'm not going to stop for nothing. It's time to wake people up. It's time to make change in this country. And if I can't even explain the feeling that I got when I looked at Dwight Hammond's eyes,
Absolutely. Well, yeah, he and his brother. I mean, I think you could just see it in their demeanor. That thing that people call body language. Just in their body language, man, they look defeated. And that means the federal government, for lack of better words, did their job. And what a horrible thing to say, because that's not how it's supposed to work. So, has anyone been in contact with the Hammonds since all of this has been going down? Have they showed or reached out and expressed any show of support or concern or any words of advice?
Well, we know they checked themselves into prison last Monday, like they were ordered to do by the judge. And there was a lot of rumors out there about how they didn't, when we were in town and trying to help, and the rally even. And there was a lot of people saying in the town there about how the Hammonds didn't want the help. They didn't call for help. Everyone needs to understand that the Hammonds were threatened by the U.S. District Attorney's Office. As soon as the U.S. District Attorney's Office heard the Hammonds were speaking to us and Ammon Bundy and Patriot groups, they were actually told through their attorneys on record from the U.S. Attorney General's Office that if they were heard of or seen doing that again, they would be picked up by force earlier than January 2nd, and they would be given less than desirable conditions while they were in prison. So publicly, they had to say, that they didn't support anything. But I'm going to tell you, when I saw them that day, I saw them at dinner the night before the rally, I saw them at the rally, Dwight Hammond told me to my face and shook my hand and then gave me a hug and said, "Thank you for doing what you're doing. Don't stop."
Boom.
And he also said, "This is bigger than me. It's about America." And he actually said that to the entire crowd of 400 people standing there. And that solidified it for me. And that is not a man who didn't want people there in his support.
Absolutely. And the media, I was watching a few of the news outlets. This is, kind of what I do. I watch everything that's going on. So I watched how the media projected that analysis, and the way that they projected it was, um, that the Hammonds wanted to separate themselves, that they were voluntarily wanting to separate themselves from the violent extremists at the refuge. And that is not the perception that, I took, of course, because I have more knowledge of the situation, but that is the perception that a lot of people actually took from it, is that, oh, the Hammonds aren't even supporting them. So, those guys are just out there acting up and clowning around for no reason. And I love what you say about that is he absolutely knows what's going on. He absolutely knows the importance of it. And it's not that he's being selfish about it because, the land is his and the surrounding land, but also because he knows that this is a fight for America. This is a fight over rights.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And it's bigger than Burns, Oregon. It's bigger than Harney County. It's bigger than any person. And the deal is, everyone needs to understand it's the Hammond's ranch that day. And then it could be the Smith's ranch the next day, or the Joneses ranch the day after that. It's a bigger problem, and the BLM is unconstitutionally taking property and land from people in this country. People like Dwight Hammond and his son, Steve Hammond, they're the backbone of this country, what it was built on. And how dare they take that away like that?
Yeah, they've, especially working that land for 30 years. I believe I improperly said brothers earlier, but especially working that land for that long, for longer than that. That means that whenever, I don't know if any of our viewers out or any of our listeners out there know this, but, in the countryside, whenever, a young guy is growing up under his father in a ranching type condition, his father invests, maybe not his money, but his father will invest his whole time throughout that young man's life in teaching him how to run that ranch and how to take care of proper operations for the family. So there's not just land that's lost. We're talking about valuable family memories that are lost. We're talking about time that can never be reclaimed. Time that was, it was constitutional. Everything that they were doing was constitutional. So I think that the Hammonds were, and this speaks to their being defeated as much as they were. I think the Hammonds were, they had a goodwill. They are good people, and they were just simply put into a circumstance with a big bad monster that neither one of them had ever seen before, and really had no reason to see, because those BLM people didn't belong there, and the government didn't belong overreaching that much. So this is my thing. If you guys are here in the refuge, and obviously there's talks amongst all the groups, you haven't spoken to the Hammonds, but you know what their will and what their desire is. You know that they're with you there in spirit. Knowing that they're there with you there in spirit, and having that vision in your mind of those defeated individuals in their eyes and how they looked, how long do you think that this will last? Do you think that this will be something that'll last for a couple weeks, a month, 6 months, a year? And based on how long you think it's going to last, what is the level of preparation for you guys that are out there? Are you guys prepared for the long haul, or are you thinking this is something you can get to the table and talk with the parties involved very soon?
Well, we're actually preparing for both. I'm hopeful for a shorter duration type resolution, just because of all the national and international, for that matter, attention and spotlight this is getting. So it'll help push it there. But we are prepared for a long haul. We have a lot of resources and members and personnel to pull from to keep doing what we're doing. The guys up in the refuge are getting tons of support from local ranchers with supplies and just moral support and prayer, whatever it is that keeps them going. They're getting that. I check in with those guys, a couple times a day. I talk to them up there as well to make sure they're doing okay. And they're there for the duration.
Okay, so let me ask you that. That was a very good point you actually just brought up. Now, let's go back. I've been talking, during this interview, I've been talking about how the media has placed a perception out and how the country, a good majority of the country is eating it up. Um, let's talk about the community that's actually right there. Now you say that some of the ranchers from the area, the surrounding area, I guess around the refuge, they're actually bringing supplies to the refuge, even though they're not, maybe being involved in the situation and actively staying there themselves, but they're bringing supplies for the people that are there.
They are. They are. And the other thing that's coming with that is that when they're coming up there, they're sharing their stories. They're sharing their stories of the abuses that they've had to deal with, how they've lost their land, or how they've had to fight with the BLM. And here's the thing with Harney County. Harney County used to be the richest county in Oregon.
Oh,
Today
wow.
today it is the second poorest in the state.
Okay, why did it used to be the richest county? Can you give us a little bit of facts on that, a little bit of history on that?
Absolutely. So that county used to be booming with timber industry, farming, and ranching. That was what drove the economy in that county. As the BLM grew, there's a pretty large sized BLM office there, Forest Service, and as long as those entities grew in that town, started shutting down ranching land, taking control, federal control of people's private land for refuges or whatever the case may be. The ranches got smaller, herds got smaller, cattle got smaller, putting people out of business. And so now that town, just over 50% of that town, the population of that county, works for the federal government. They rely on that federal government paycheck through their job with the federal government. So now they're all dependent. If you take into account the rest of the people in that county that utilize some sort of social services through the state or federal government, it's almost 70%.
Wow.
That's almost 3/4 of the county.
And this is something. I don't mean to cut you off. This is something that they haven't elected to do, but they've kind of been strong armed into doing.
Yeah, and I call it planned obsolescence. When something.
Oh my God, that's a beautiful term. What do you know about planned obsolescence, buddy? Yes, that is absolutely what it's called.
It's by design. It's by design, and that's what they want. They want to have control of that community. So when these types of situations happen, they have the ability to control the community. Oh, you better not speak up or act this way. We'll take your land lease away, and you won't be able to run your cattle. If you speak up, you're going to get fired. You'll no longer have a job.
Yeah. Now, I believe that's very representative of what we're seeing in America. And I believe that the people see us folks that are out here with our eyes open to the government with their paws and everything, and with their draconian laws and just the massive overreach on a daily basis, minute by minute. Us folks, we're more receptive to the conversation that you guys provide there, because it's a logical conversation. It's very, very well stated. I mean, you guys, you don't fumble over, well, this or this or this. No, it's either black or white. It's right there. It's in front of you. It's not something where you have to wonder about this or wonder about that. You just have to sit down and actually listen to the story. So I guess for guys and girls that are out there listening and that are interested in this kind of information about their government, this is very easy to understand for us. Now, for folks that I call them my mainstream media folks. For my mainstream media folks that are out there that may listen to the network news every day and only understand that part of it, what would you say to them to help them to understand? I mean, just in a short few sentences, what would you say to them to turn them around and say, hey, stop listening to those guys over there, listen to us. We have a legitimate, well-based argument. What would you say to those people that maybe don't get it?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say to them, don't be scared. Don't live in fear. You see the people that don't want to make changes because they're fearful. We can't make change living in the shadows. We can't make change from our keyboards on Facebook or social media, guys. In order to make change, we got to take a stand, be a voice, be heard. You can't do it from the shadows anymore. And
absolutely,
we're making history right now. So the time is now to stand up and be a part of that history.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I wanted to ask that question because I've been waiting to ask that one, but I want to get back to the land. You said timber, farming, and industry were the main uses of the land when the town was actually booming. Now, we have to answer a question that I'm sure is looming in some of our, some of our listeners' minds. Well, if these guys are saying that the BLM is overstepping their boundaries and kind of using brute force a little bit, then why are they doing that? What is the purpose of them doing that? And I don't know how you're going to answer this question. I know what I've read so far, but as far as what I'm seeing, if timber, farming, and industry have now all been kind of in a way, underhandedly subsidized now by the government, what is their real purpose for taking over the land? Because obviously they're not going to make a ton of money off of some ranchers. Do you have any idea what their real purpose may be? Does it have anything to do with the value of the land and what's actually in that land?
Absolutely. You always got to follow the money. And if you go look, let's take a look at the area over at the Hammond's Ranch in Burns. A lot of that land has uranium in it. Very valuable. Okay. And for those that think, oh, okay, yeah, right, I actually have the 85-page report that shows the uranium testing, and it was called the Uranium Aurora Testing Project. There's uranium all over that valley, and if you look at what the federal government's been doing and the types of properties and land they're trying to take gold mines for miners, expensive timber land, and these types of ranches like the Hammonds and the refuge, if you will, the federal land of the refuge, it's all valuable property. You don't see them seizing people's property down in the desert where it ain't worth anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is what they're doing, and it's all by design. And, you can even take it as far as to say, is this to pay back debts that we have to the Chinese or whatever the case may be? But there's a reason behind it. You got to follow the money.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, we won't even we don't even have to go that deep. You're absolutely right about that, because there's a lot of there's that speculation of why are they doing it for the resources? Are they just being greedy? Are they using it to pay off this multi-trillion-dollar debt that we have? What is it that we're doing it for? I believe 19 trillion, but what are we doing it for? So I believe that the people knowing about the value of the land, as I've looked through all the information that's out there and the videos and the reports, and of course the awesome reports that come from the Bundy Ranch Facebook page. If you guys listening aren't friends or subscribe to or like the Bundy Ranch page, make sure you do that right away. But with all the information that's coming in, let me just ask you this then. The rights to the land, there's a very sensitive topic, so I want to word this correctly, okay?
Okay.
Now, the rights to the land, are based on the people that are there. They're farming the land. They're, as you said, timber, farming, and industry. People that are actually working the land to support their families. Yet, if you look on social media, the rhetoric from the media has now devolved into something on social media where it's, those guys don't own that land anyway. They need to give it back to the Indians. They need to get off of that land and go back to their hometowns. What do you say to people like that say that the ranchers that are there right now, presently occupying the land, do not own the land? What do you say about that?
Well, you're right. That's like an onion. That's a layered topic. But here's my opinion. That's a good argument. We've actually been in contact with the Paiute tribe out there to try to get them involved. They're actually named in the resolution that we have to get them involved back in that land.
Is that Paiute, you said?
Yeah, the Paiute Indian tribe.
Okay, all right.
And they're in that resolution, the articles resolution that we gave to everybody. As a talking point to get them back involved in helping manage that land, because I do believe they need to be involved in that. then a lot of people could say, well, is it the reservation and this whole thing, right? So that gets very convoluted and confusing for sure. But I do believe they need to be involved in that land, and no one's telling them they shouldn't. As far as our position, what it works out with them later, I don't know.
So what I would like to interject and say then is this, and this is for all the people that are listening out there. If you've been made to believe in, for you guys that can't see me, I'm a 6'5" black guy. So I'm going to tell you from my angle. If you guys are made to believe, through social media and through some of these people on social media that, pass off a lot of rhetoric, if you're made to believe that the people at the wildlife refuge there, if they're racist in any kind of way, bigots in any kind of way, if they're there for any kind of racial reasons, we need to knock that argument out right now. That argument needs to stop immediately, because that takes away from the very value of what's going on there right now. This is for all American people, whether you're white, black, Mexican, Puerto Rican, whatever you are, Indian, it doesn't matter. This fight is for all people. And I really want to take the time to commend you guys for actually including the Paiute Indians within your resolutions. Now, when you say include them within your resolution, do you mean that when you went to the FBI compound, when you went to the sheriff's office, and whoever else you may have given the paperwork to, were they included in that packet of information that you guys were passing off?
Yeah, and that was the articles of resolution. That's what we passed out in those visits, and they were in the third talking point of that document about having them be involved in helping manage the land, alongside with the residents of Harney County.
Okay. Now, have any of the representatives from the Paiute tribe that is out in that location, have any of them come down to the refuge to talk with you guys?
Not that I'm aware of. We're actually not in the refuge. We've been up there to visit and we talked to those guys, but our position is actually on the exterior of the refuge to do our perimeter security patrols and things like that.
Okay.
From what my knowledge is, they have not been down there or reached out or talked to anybody. I could be wrong on that as of yesterday or this morning, but that's my knowledge now.
Okay, well, I think it was very good for you guys to be preemptive and to go ahead and include them in those articles of resolution, because that gives you guys also that ability to, like I was saying, to show the American public that all of this rhetoric going around is just that, rhetoric. It's not anything that's really solid. And the real truth of the matter is that you're doing this for everybody. So you including them preemptively like that is... I believe it could be a saving grace in some certain, concerns. Now,
yeah, the reality is we're all here together. And I'm glad you hit on that racist point, and because we've been hearing that as well, and I've been getting emails and messages being called a racist and a redneck, and I'm a 5'7" Irish kid, so I'm a small guy and I'm an Irish kid, and I'm going to tell you right now, when we've been up there, there's all walks of life and diversity up there at the refuge. It is definitely not a racist thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you guys we were able to clear that up, because that's one of the things that, I write on a couple websites and produce some YouTube channel. And I read a lot of the comments. I don't have time to respond to everything, but I read a lot of the comments, and I see that right now where we are presently, we're so racially divided over everything, and I see that as being a tremendously large barrier at getting to the goals and actually getting to, if we had a document as a country, if we had a document for articles of resolution on how we're going to fix things and how we're going to sit down at the table to talk, the first talking point would be to figure out racism, because we have to get over that. We have to really get over that. Am I saying to forget the past and forget what has happened? No, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that temporarily in moving forward, you cannot put the past in the future. You can't put the past in the present all the time. So you guys are living in the moment, and I'm hoping that my fellow Americans that are out there see the same thing, and they see that this argument of racism has been nothing but a dividing topic that has been handed down from our elite to us, so that people of my skin color don't come out there to where you guys are. I made a comment. I believe it was the first or second day that the refuge was occupied. Second day, I think it was. And you guys had the rally, and I remember seeing you guys walk in, and there was like a little meeting somewhere, and it looked like there was maybe about 150, maybe to 200 people, and that's a good turnout. But I made a very interesting topic, that we discussed on Facebook, I believe it was. But I said, well, if we didn't have the issue of racism dividing us as a country, and if we were able to just study on the issues and the facts, our own, quote unquote, articles of resolution, the guys and girls that were in Ferguson, the guys and girls that were in Baltimore, the guys and girls that have been in all of these cities that are in Vineland, New Jersey over Philip White, all the guys and girls would have came out to this refuge to say, wait a second, we're standing with these women and these gentlemen that are out here against the federal government. But because we have this divisionary tactic between us, it's very hard for people to see on the other side of the fence. And I think that is, that's something that's eroding our society. It's eroding our rights, and it's giving the government, the federal government, more access to be able to do things quicker, to do them under the radar, and to do them by brute force, is because everyone is weakened when they're not together. So I really commend you guys as far as stepping out to the Indian population there, to the Paiute Indians, and saying, hey, come join us. This is, your land just as much as anyone else's. Absolutely.
And, the biggest thing is you hit the nail on the head. United we stand, divided we fall, period.
Absolutely.
We cannot make progress if we're going to be divided. And what you got to look at is you got to go back to the document you were discussing. We have one. We've had one in place for hundreds of years. It's called the Constitution.
That's right.
And the Constitution of the United States knows no color. And that's what people need to go back on. It knows no color. It applies to everybody and their rights.
It absolutely does. Well, I tell you what, I just got a couple more things that I wanted to comment to you on here about. I wanted to figure out in that area, this is just some analytical kind of geeky stuff that I'm sure people have a question to, because there's not a lot of good streaming out of that area. I want to give a shout out to Pete Santilli. I've noticed the tremendous work that he's doing down there. I've gotten a lot of my good information off of his channel, but I want to focus in on what people can't see. Now, when you guys talk about BLM and the federal government, in most Americans' minds, it probably, looks like the big bad monster. I guess you could say a Gestapo of land grabbers. So, what in reality? What is the actual number of BLM people that may be patrolling that area or maybe controlling those grounds? Are we talking about 20 people, 50 people, 100?
I'm not sure on the exact numbers. They have a pretty large field office there. And if you take into account, well, you could look at it this way in that area. The Harney County has approximately 7,000 residents.
Okay.
You figure 52%, I believe, was the number that actually are employed by the federal government.
Okay.
That's going to give you, let's say, just conservatively, there's 3,000 people that work in those offices alone.
Oh, okay. All right. So there's not an exact count on how many of the actual I guess you would say the land agents, the ones that are actually on foot.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure what that would include all aspects of the office or the operations, but
are they showing a presence? Showing, like, is the BLM coming out in groups or anything like that? Are they showing any kind of force around the refuge or anything?
I have not seen a single BLM officer or agent since we've been in town, or Forest Service.
Wow, really?
All you see is FBI, and they've got deputies in town from all but two of the sheriff's departments in the entire state of Oregon. There's two sheriff's departments that have not sent deputies there, and it's the the only show of force and aggression that's being shown in that town is by the federal government right now with their, their tactics from the FBI. And I'm sure, did you hear about the fire chief on that situation today?
Actually, that's exactly what we were walking into. I want to
Murph,
ask you. I want to ask you one thing before you tell us about that. How many three percenters and affiliated groups that are under you guys? How many of you guys are actually there in that location? On a revolving patrol, if you will.
Well, I never give out numbers for operational security reasons, but I can tell you that we have a lot of manpower on the ground that we're rotating in and out.
Awesome.
We have them on lookout posts, observation posts. We have on listening posts. Excuse me, patrols. We have them all doing a lot of different things. Just know that it takes a lot of numbers to keep that going, and we definitely have that with backup waiting. So
what would
the
be the land area that you guys are patrolling? I mean, what's the size? Or are you guys talking? I definitely understand. That's a great point of you guys not giving up your exact numbers. That would probably create a little bit of a unfair disadvantage if they knew those numbers. But without implying whether you're spread thin or anything like that. What is the land area that you guys have to patrol? Is it like maybe a 5-mile radius, 50 miles, or what does that look like?
Well, just to give you an idea, the refuge is approximately 30 miles from Burns, Oregon. So we cover that entire area. A lot of people think that the refuge is right there in town, right on the edge of town, but it's actually about 30 miles out of town, so it's a little bit of a ways out there. And then you have the FBI super secret staging areas, we call it now since we found it. But it's about 3 or 4 miles out of town at their little airport out there. So that's
So it's like in between.
Yeah, exactly. And they have that positioned up pretty good right there, and they that's where they're doing all their surveillance out of.
So let me ask you this: is there any kind of I know that the ranchers have been coming through, the local ranchers, they've been bringing goods and, bringing supplies and stuff like that. Is there any kind of way that the people at the refuge could actually leave out of the refuge and maybe, let's just say, come into town, driving past the FBI, coming into town and maybe to get some groceries or whatever other supplies they may personally need in town, and then go back to the refuge? Or do they have that in-between point blocked off at any point?
Oh, great question. Because we've been getting a lot of that question quite a bit. So there is no roadblocks whatsoever. They are free to come and go as they wish, for now anyway. They have been coming into town for meetings and groceries and things like that. So there's no roadblocks. We drove right up in there, no problem, came out. They're doing the same thing.
Okay, very good. Now I want to focus on what we were kind of alluding to a few minutes ago there, and that was some breaking information that just happened hours ago for the listeners out there. If you haven't seen it, the fire chief from that area actually just resigned, and the reason why he resigned is absolutely explosive. I am not the best person to tell you about it. Brandon, who we have on the line, is actually Brandon Curtis, the leader of the Idaho 3 Percenters, is the best person to tell you about what happened. Brandon, please tell us about this groundbreaking information.
Oh, this is absolutely awesome. That happened today, and breaking is exactly what it is. So the gentleman was the fire chief of Burns, Oregon, or Harney County. He was also one of the people nominated and elected to the Committee of Safety that was put in place a couple weeks ago to start addressing these issues with the county government. They wanted to have a town hall meeting Friday night where Ammon Bundy was going to come speak to the community to talk about moving forward with this plan to get this solidified so everybody could go home.
Okay.
So they had the fair building reserved, and we've had many town halls at the fair building. It's a county fair building. It's paid for, built by the taxpayers, paid for, and maintained by the taxpayers.
Okay.
So the fire chief was called to the judge's office, Judge Grassi, the county judge there. And he was told that he was berated by the judge, saying that he was just an old man that would be nothing and worth nothing, and just berated him. And then told him that in no shape, way, or form would he or anybody else be allowed to use that building or any building in the county to meet with Ammon Bundy. And then he was prohibited to meet with Ammon Bundy. And I met with this judge when I was in town, had coffee with him. Mm-hmm. the night before I had coffee with him, he actually called down to the town hall meeting where I was at, and I spoke to him on the phone, and he told me to get out of his town. So this
what's his name again?
Steve Grassi.
Okay. All
right. And I would share that because I want everyone to understand where he feels he feels he has this power and this bully tactic and being able to manipulate people. So my response to him when he told me to get my crew and get out of his town before he ran me out, that I would leave his town when I damn well pleased, and there was nothing he could do about it. So that's the type of mentality we're dealing with. And so the fire chief told the judge at that moment in his office, effective immediately, he's resigning as the fire chief, and that the judge would not tell him or anyone else what they can or can't do. He's a free man, and the judge knows nothing about the Constitution and where he could shove it. And he walked out.
Ooh, wow.
And as soon as he walked out, he went right up to the refuge where they were holding the 11 o'clock daily press conference, and then told his story to the entire nation.
Wow, how about that? Well,
oh, man. You want to talk about liberating and breaking some chains, huh?
Yeah, that's... I think, we have, and that's, let me just key in on that. That is actually the threat. The threat is not you guys being at the land. That's not the threat. The government could really, just to be honest with you, they don't need that land. They could care less about it. The threat really is you guys bucking up towards their quote unquote authority. So because you're stepping up to the plate to say, we're not going to listen to this irrational authority, this illegal authority, that argument has the potential to shift lives, not your mind, your whole life. And when we're talking about somebody that's a fire chief, I think it's notable that we would say that he's been employed by that same place from 1984, from the 1980s, I believe 1984 to 2006, and came back again.
Yes, he did. He was on the ambulance, and then the ambulance got transferred to the hospital, so there wasn't a need for that. So then he became the fire chief, and was the fire chief until this morning.
Yeah, so when you talk about people that have been there, they know the people of the county, they know, I mean, this guy... You probably can't meet another guy in the county that or in the city at all that knows everybody like he does. Okay?
Right.
So when you talk about credibility, that is what the government is afraid of, is that this movement will start changing the minds, hearts, and lives of those who have massive credibility and influence in their communities. Because what the government has been very successful at is the same thing that they're doing to the ranchers in that location. They've been successful at silencing people through the fact that they're getting paid, whether it's the government or your job that you're working at. If you're getting paid and they don't want you to say certain things, they're going to let you know that your job's on the line if you do say those things. So the same thing is happening there in Oregon. And with that happening, and as you've spoken to us a little bit earlier and told us, people are being silenced, people are being kind of strong-armed. So with that happening, that's when the government starts to lose their foothold. When they start to lose their foothold is, that's a time, I mean, I don't know how you view and perceive that, but it is very exciting because it shows that what you're doing is, not only working, but it's going to continue to work. All you need is one. Once you get one to convert over and to understand what's going on, he's going to go talk and tell some friends. They're going to go talk and tell some friends, and that's how this starts.
Right. And the other thing, too, I want to mention about the fire chief, we should say prior fire chief now, the sheriff and the officials of the county have been putting out information to the public about how the big bad militia members and 3%ers have been following the residents around, and their crime rates have gone up, and all this rhetoric to create fear and division. Their fear-mongering tactics.
Yes.
And what had happened was the other night, there was a dark, blacked-out vehicle running around out by the armory.
What kind of vehicle are we talking about? If you know.
Well, so what happened was the fire chief saw the vehicle, and knowing that these reports have been going on about citizens being followed and stalking and harassment, he thought he would, check into this. So he went and stopped the vehicle.
Uh-huh.
And when he went up to the vehicle, made them identify themselves. They identified themselves and flashed FBI badges. They were FBI agents, and they're the ones doing this stuff.
So the vehicle, did it look like one of the vehicles from the county, or maybe like was it, like I guess what I'm leading towards is, um, if they're going to be doing stuff like that, then they're going to want to try to probably be smart about it and blend in as much as possible. So the vehicles they're using, I mean, is it their official government vehicles, or are they using vehicles that don't even have government plates on them?
From what my understanding was, it looked like a normal daily driver civilian vehicle. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what it was. I do know it was dark in color, tinted windows, but
Well, that's a
uh,
telltale sign right there to let you know if they're riding around in cars without the government tags on them. Um, Official business has changed. It, it's not quite as official and as talking. Like you guys are approaching this from a talking standpoint. You're saying, hey, we don't want any violence. We're not coming here with guns to try to do anything. We're coming to your compound to talk to you without brandishing weapons. But it seems to me that what they're trying to do is agitate the situation a little bit to possibly get a reaction. I mean, actually, I'll let you talk on that. Why do you think they're trying to agitate the situation? What do you think that agitation would do or allow them to do?
well, it's two things in my opinion. They're creating the agitation, uh, which creates fear by creating what these false flags, this false sense of insecurity in the community because we're there. And so what happens is people think we're doing these things, so it creates fear, and it makes them look to us as we're the bad guys to shut us out. It creates divide within the community. The community is very quickly gaining support for us being there. I've had dinner at people's homes in that community. They brought us supplies and food to our hotel room and hot meals.
Wow.
I've had people come up to me in the store with tears in their eyes, thanking us. The support's been unbelievable. The other side of that question is the agitation to create a false flag. You create enough agitation, you provoke someone to do something they shouldn't do, such as fire that first shot. And then it gives them the ability and the reason to go in and do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's
Well,
why we're there, to make sure that doesn't happen.
and you guys have a very, very, I mean, critically important role in being there because those guys and girls at the refuge, um, we already know that, in case our listeners that are out there don't know this, but, we don't want this to turn into a Waco situation. And, the mainstream media and the government and the corporations, they're all, working together. They've been highly successful at demonizing groups of individuals. And I'm not, saying sticking up for the Waco folks, but I'm saying in this situation, I've noticed that the mainstream media have mentioned Waco quite a few times. So they're putting the narrative out there as if these are crazy people. This is what they do. And if you put that narrative with the actions of the FBI agents in the area as far as provoking, then you can start to see where they're trying to, do you agree with me? You can maybe start to see where they're trying to bring this thing to a close, but they're trying to do it maybe under brute force by psychologically tricking the people in the area.
Absolutely, and that's what they're using. They're using, a psychology psyop tactics. It's exactly what they're doing, and it's really unfortunate. But here's the deal: we're on to them now, and we're in their face, and we'll continue to be in their face. We're not going to let them do that, and that's the motto that we're actually using now: no more free Wacos. And we told them that right to their face. We will not allow Waco to happen, and no more free Wacos. Period.
Mm, wow, that's powerful. Well, Brandon, you've definitely shed some light on the topic. I'm sure our listeners out there, they are more than happy to hear your words. They're also more than happy to hear the fact that you guys are standing strong and that you're actually healthy, that the spirits are high, that the community is involved. it's just so great to know that you guys are sticking up for your rights, and sticking up not just for your rights, but for the rights of others and for all Americans. And I hope that this interview, people that are listening out there, can really understand that this doesn't have to deal with money, this doesn't have to deal with color. It only has to deal with rights. That's all we're talking about. Is simple, basic American rights, the way that we enjoy our rights. And again, I just can't reiterate enough. Divisionary tactics are tactics from the government. We inherently, as people, when I go outside and I, look at my neighbors, I'm the only black guy on an all white street, very long street in a very nice neighborhood. When I go outside and look at my neighbors, I don't take the rhetoric off of YouTube and my work off of YouTube that I may be working on and apply that to reality when I walk outside and deal with my neighbors, because that's not reality. So, when we're dealing with one another as a people is when we're the best. We have to get out of these electronic devices and go talk to our neighbor, as you've done. You've sat down in some of the homes of the people in the community, and they've discussed their concerns, opinions, and you've done the same and discussed the facts as well. So when we do that and when we combine and we bring that community function together, I believe that we can have the healthy atmosphere that you guys actually have there in Oregon. And I believe that we can achieve that as a country. So I commend you guys for standing up and saying, we're not going to take any more of this. No more free Wacos. And we're here, we're organized, we're ready, we know our rights, and we're not going to back down, and we're going to do it non-violently.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We are putting out if I may do so on this show, we are putting out a call for action this weekend in Burns, Oregon. You can go to our Facebook page. We have the guidelines there. There's going to be a town hall meeting Friday night that discuss the resolution of this and moving forward. But also at that time, we're going to expose some corruption at the county level we have uncovered with the judge, with some other county officials, and we're going to put that on public record at that moment to help empower that community so they take a stand and they can say, okay, we're not going to take this anymore either. We can do this. And hopefully we'll get that ball rolling. But we are going to expose that judge, and we are going to expose anyone else in Harney County that's corrupt, because we will bring justice to you. However that does to the FBI investigating it, the federal Bureau of Investigation, I have an issue with them investigating these sort of things because it's a conflict of interest in my opinion. But either way, it needs to be into the court of public opinion and dealt with. So we are calling for all patriots to come to Burns, Oregon Friday through the weekend and show support for that community, as well as show some security.
What time will this event be?
What's that? I'm sorry?
What time will the event be on Friday for people that are traveling to the area?
It's 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And you can go to our Facebook page if you just type in the search Idaho 3%. Okay. And you can go to our organizational page, send me a message right through there. Our website is www.iii%idaho.org. So we also you can contact us through there. I'll post it up there tonight, the latest release on what we're doing. It's important and imperative that we get everybody there possible. That town needs to see that people love them and will support them and take them through this process while they take a stand. They've been abused and beaten down long enough, and it's time for them to get on their own feet.
Well, with that being said, brother, I tell you what, I hope that we can get another future interview with you after that meeting, possibly. Just to see get some outcomes and things for that. So we'd like to invite you back on the show, and so we can get more of the words out to the public, and we will help to be a voice in bridging this divide, because we want to let you know one thing: the anonymous community is behind you. The anonymous community is paying attention. We are very well aware of everything that is going on, and we haven't forgotten you in any kind of way. So here at Anon Radio Live, we want to give you that opportunity, and we want to build that connection with you as we are now, to come on later on and to speak with us some more, and to let the American people know exactly what's going on. We know mainstream media is not going to do it for us. We know we can't even put everything on YouTube nowadays. So this live radio show right here, let this be a voice, for you guys. If you want to get any information out, you definitely know how to find my show's producer. Get in contact with her. I don't care if it's night, day, what time it is. I will get on the air and get out whatever message you guys want to get out.
Oh man, I appreciate that. That's a huge help, and I'll take you up on that. And anytime you guys want to have me on the show, I'd be glad to do that. I know most of this country's heard of the Idaho 3% because we're doing a lot of stuff, making a lot of noise.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. I think we've got international now. I did some media interviews with Russia, Australia, and France. So I think we're going to hit the worldwide.
Yeah, I think so. Well, listen, Brandon, we're not going to take up too much more of your time. We're going to go ahead and close out. In closing, is there any further information that you'd like to get out to the American people and to the international community? This is your stage, so you let us know what you would like us to know about the situation, any kind of links that you have for us to follow or anything like that.
The biggest thing I want to get out to the people, and I always tell this at the end of my interviews, is make sure people check facts. Don't buy into the disinformation being spread around the internet, social media. Check facts and know what you're doing before you want to base an opinion or make a comment. We do need people. We do need boots on the ground. This is a huge, huge deal, everybody. And I'm sure you would agree. We're making history right now, Absolutely. And we need people there to do it with us. And you can go to our website, which again is www.iiipercentidaho.org. Hit the contact us button if you have any questions. You can go to current. There's a tab up there that says operations, and if you click that, we'll have all the updates there as well with press releases.
Okay, great information. Hey, you guys, I want to thank you for listening in for this last hour as we've spoken to Brandon Curtis. He is the leader of the Idaho 3%ers. Those guys and girls are providing the perimeter security patrols and observation around the refuge there in Oregon. They're doing an excellent job. They're good American patriots, just like all of us that are on this broadcast right now. So you guys make sure you follow that information that Brandon Curtis just put out there. Also, guys, make sure you stay tuned for more information. We want you guys to go to the Anon Radio Live webpage, actually our Facebook fan page. Make sure you give us a like on there and follow us. We're going to have more updates. We're going to be following this situation very closely. Also, I'd like for you to follow another page on Facebook called All Rights Matter, and that's #ARM, All Rights Matter. We're going to be also bridging the divide, if you will. So this is for common thinkers, people that don't look at money, or race or anything like that, or religion or anything, and that we come together as Americans and we talk about the topics and support one another. So I'd like for you to go to All Rights Matter. Brandon, thank you for giving us your time tonight. We really appreciate that, and we'll make sure that we drop some links below this video here that we put on YouTube, so that people could be able to access your content a lot easier. And we look forward to talking with you in the future.
Anything you guys need, if I could put one more plug in there, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
All of our guys that go, they do this on their time, guys and gals. There's a donation link on that website. If you're able to donate in any way, we try to cover food and fuel. Please do that. These guys are putting it out there, making the changes. Anything's appreciated.
Hey, that's oh man, you can't survive without. We all live under the dollar, so we have to have those dollars. So, guys and girls, donation link. Make sure you go to that page. And Brandon, say the page one more time for us, please.
You bet. It's www.iiipercentidaho.org, and that's lowercase i's would be like the Roman numeral 3. So iiipercentidaho.org. Across the top, there's a button for donations. We are a registered nonprofit, so it's tax deductible, and it's through PayPal. So any donations, whether it's $5, $20, whatever, it all helps. It all adds up to help pay for these guys' hotel rooms, fuel, and food.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we get that information out. My last final plug, actually, from our show's producer. She wants to give a shout out to a very well-respected Anon in the community, Vano. If I'm saying that right, Vanno. He passed away today, so we want to give a shout out to his family and much love and support from the Anonymous family. And Brandon, we thank you for being here, and we look forward to talking to you in the future. You guys, make sure you keep your heads up, keep your spirits good, and make sure you just stay alert, stay alive.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
All right, now, thank you.
Be safe. Have a good night.
All right, you too.